I think having a great support system, as little as so your spouse, your friend, the people that you can find. Sometimes you have to pay for some things. Pay someone to clean your house. It doesn't mean you are lazy. Some days you win, some days you struggle, but the goal is to stand up every day and push again. So,
in a spirit of being a candle that consumes itself and lights the path for others, I have a phenomenal teacher here today. She's popularly known as Teacher Body. Teacher Body is a teacher wellness advocate. She's a teacher branding coach, an educational consultant, quality assurance manager, and author of My Wellness Journal, and also the convener of the teacher branding community. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mrs. SENAMI MICAH here today as my guest. Please, a round of applause for my guest. Happy New Year.
Same to you, that's true.
How's been your year?
It's been great. It started on a very busy note, but it's been great so far.
Oh, amazing. So before we continue, I'd like to clarify something. Are you the founder of Merrimack Schools or you work there? I wanted to write it, but I wasn't really sure.
So I'm not the founder, but then I'm continuing with a legacy. So it's a family.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's owned by my...
So let's say she's the co-founder of Merrimack Schools. If it wasn't teaching, what would it have been?
I remember I wanted to study medicine so bad, but then I'm sure I didn't know what I was getting into. I just knew that you either had to be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer.
Oh.
And so, but apart from that, I watched both my grandmothers. So my maternal grandmother had diabetes and my paternal grandmother had cancer. So watching them, you know, battle and then die really made me wanted to be a doctor. So I think that was one of the reasons. I remember then when I go for interviews, when I was trying to get admission, I'll tell them that because my grandmother did it, I want to be a doctor. You know, I spent my final year thinking, what exactly do you want to do with your life? And then during NYC, I found the answer. I had the answer, but I was so unsure of taking that leap.
You were trying to deny the truth.
I remember listening to a radio station in my hostel one afternoon, and the person was talking so passionately about the education sector. And I was like, I want this to be me. I want to be the one speaking about this someday. I wrote it down in my journal. I've been keeping journals since I was in like secondary school. So I wrote it in my journal then. But then I didn't say I wanted to become a teacher. I said I would like to be a commissioner of education or a minister. But I didn't say teachers. But during NYC, I fell in love with the children I was teaching. I taught in a village. The children that when you say what do you want to become, they'll tell you things like, I want to be a market woman. Yeah, they didn't even know that they could become doctors or lawyers. That's sad. So they became my friends, and that was when I just had that conviction, and I got my why right there.
So has it been worth the sacrifice after all?
It has been, and it's been worth it, even though it still breaks my heart that I meet people studying education, that actually studying education.
And they still say, I don't want to be a teacher.
I met one recently. When I was looking for a PA, I had an interview, and when she said she was studying mathematics education, I was excited. I was like, oh, perfect PA. And she was like, no, I'm not planning to teach. And I'm like, God, I felt really bad. I was like, and she's not the first person. I've met many of them like that.
As a quality assurance manager, talk to us about the quality of education in Nigeria.
So when it comes to Nigeria, one topic I really don't like talking about is what you have just asked me, because every time it feels like we have a new minister and it's like we're starting all over again. So there's still a big gap when it comes to continuity and implementation.
Apparently, I think that's one of the problems we have in this country.
So, you know, so it's just like many schools now use British curriculum. Some use British and Nigerian. Some are using purely Nigerian. But I took some time to sit down and I went through the Nigerian curriculum, and I realized how deep it was. Deeper than the way people always talk about it. So when you look at the section where they're telling you the skills that the children are learning, they are as detailed as mentioning that they're going to learn about critical thinking, collaboration. They specify it there. It's actually right there. But many teachers don't even look at that corner. They don't look at that corner. They just look at the topics and write it out. So it means that somehow we know what we want in Nigeria when it comes to the education sector. And the gap is just implementation. So the how. We seem to know our why, we seem to know what we want, but we don't seem to pay attention to the how. And even when one person begins to pay attention and start something, once we have a new minister, it's either the form or the, like what is recently, they're talking about the change in 6 to,
6 to, you know, 12 something.
So something. I'm just like, how do we get there? Excuse me, how do we get there when we keep going back and forth? Because it seems like every time we have taken a step forward and we are beginning to
backward.
Settle in. Even schools, they'll go into buying resources, employing people to come and do all these things, and then you just change. So even when the private school owners are trying to follow what the government is saying, they are frustrated because after investing in a lot of things, someone just comes and tells you, we don't want to do that again. Some have probably built structures or changed the form, you know. And then when it comes to the public school system, I would say that there's no balance. The challenges are deep, you know, the problems are deep, but I also don't like to focus on the problems. So what I would always just say is that even when I meet teachers that work in public school and they tell me 100 reasons why they are not motivated, I always tell them that once you have an ownership mindset and you stay focused on your why, that why is very important. So even when all the other teachers, they feel like your own is too much, what is wrong with you, Vasabi, you would stay focused. And that little bit that you're able to put in will, even if it affects or it impacts 20 children, 50 children, you're still doing something in your own little way.
As a quality assurance, I'm still going to go back to that. As a quality assurance manager or educational consultant, what are the traits you look out for when you're actually trying to interview a teacher, or when you go for your consulting in schools? What are some of the things you actually look out for? And then you can pin down something that, oh, this teacher is actually worth a recommendation or something.
Okay, so for me, I would say, first of all, your willingness to learn. I didn't start out my teaching journey, my formal, so official teaching journey as an experienced person. So the first school I worked at, or the first school I went into and said, okay, I went into that school without any experience to work in a posh school. So I had all the teaching experiences, but when it comes to technology integration and so many other skills that we look out for now, I didn't have them. But then Dr. Gude interviewed me and she just had a conversation. In short, after the conversation, I didn't realize the conversation was the interview. And I really loved that, because anytime I think back and I am like, if I had gone to a proper interview setting like we do now, would I have gotten that job? So in her conversations with me, she was looking for what she wanted to find. And when I thought, okay, can we start the interview? She was like, okay, we are through.
We're done.
You know, and that made me see things from a different perspective, because I've come to work with many teachers and I realized that it's not even about being experienced. Yes, experience has its part, but it's about being willing to learn. Once you feel you have gotten there, I'm not going to start pointing fingers because secondary school teachers, but when it feels like you have gotten there and there's really nothing to learn anymore, that's the end. So it's very hard for such teachers to, you know, to improve the learning standard of the children in their classroom, because they are going to put a lead where the children cannot go beyond what they have learned, forgetting that when you went to school, so many things have happened afterwards, right? So you started teaching in a school 2020 and this is 2025. So all the things that have happened in the past
2020 and
5 years, you have not been learning anything new. So that means the children in your classroom, they are stuck.
Beyond.
And so when a teacher does not have that ability to continue learning, that's a no-no. So when I see a teacher that is willing to learn, and now you have to also be careful, because, you know, they are the ones that they are willing to learn, but they are not ready to go through the process. So you also need to you need to be very careful, because sometimes you suggest something and you see 10 people say, yes, let's do it, and they're excited and you are carried away. But when it's time to put in the work, you see another 5 people saying, oh, man, I don't have the energy for this one. Oh, what is all this? And then out of the remaining 5, you see them pushing through, right? And then out of those 5 that are actually pushing through, maybe only 2 will follow through till the end. The other 3, yes, they are ready to put in the work, but they begin to cut corners because they are very, very excited, or I don't want, maybe excited, for lack of a better word, excited, or maybe they are anxious to get to the end point. Can we just get there on time? So they're ready to cut corners. Only 2 out of those 10 would actually go through the pain, go through the process, and ensure that, you know. So willingness to learn is a big deal for me. Willingness to learn. And number 2 is always ownership mindset. Once you have that mindset that it's not about me, it's about the children. It's not about the school owner. It's not about the government. It's about the children. So I'm just going to put in the best no matter what. So ownership mindset and willingness to learn does it for me. And by having a conversation with you in about 15 minutes, I think I should be able to figure out where you fall. Where you fall.
Okay, so you've actually touched this before, but I really want to know, there's one thing you correct in the educational system in this country, what would it be?
Okay, so I think I've mentioned it already. It's the how, the implementation process. But then I also think that we really don't have to be copycats, right? We don't need to jump into everything that we hear that some other people are doing in their countries. Instead, we need to just go back and ask ourselves, where are we? Where are we going to?
Yes.
What do we have right now?
Yes.
To take us there? Let's start with what we have.
And how does this suit our own environment? Because apparently it's a different scope.
Because even when you're trying to create a curriculum and all of that, you must.
It doesn't solve our problem.
So what are you want the children to apply what they are learning? What problems do we have in this country that the children can solve right now? Maybe not right now, but as time goes on. Of course, we're also preparing them for the future because we don't expect Nigeria to remain here. Yes. But I think we don't also have to keep thinking that we need to have everything figured out to move. The resources that we have at hand, let's start with that and still try to figure out how we can. And I think when a new person comes, just go back and ask, where are we right now? And continue. You can continue without scattering and starting over. You can actually tweak without actually starting all over from nowhere. You know, it's one thing for you to say, okay, so this is where they are. And this process that they've gone through already, it should have been done this way instead. Okay, let's continue. But then to fix that mistake or that maybe that mistake that we have made, let's do ABC so that this next step will be better. Instead of saying, okay, this is cancelled and that's the end, let's start again. And, you know, it just gets people tired and makes people give up on the sector. And that's not what we want. We want to move forward. We want to say, okay, we're not where we want to be, but at least we're not where we used to be. Not going back and forth. Because it's sad when our parents talk about when they were in school and you're wondering, what changed? How can it be better than now? It should. So we should be talking about school and they're like, wow,
it's now better.
But you hear them speak and you're wondering, okay, their time used to be better. So what's going on? And there were no private schools, there were not many private schools.
A lot of them went to
public schools, Lagos State School, Federal.
Now let's talk about this 12 years system of education now. Now that means, let's say from basic 1 all through to basic 5 or 6, depending on the school. Basic 7, that's
yes.
GS1,
all
8, 9. Now you're not writing an exam until you're in SS3. I'm using SS3 because, of course, that's all.
Yes.
So what do you think about that? I mean, you're spending a whole 12 years without writing any exam. I mean, external exam, not normal test, no evaluation.
So I like to look at it in 2 ways. Right. So 2 days ago, I was having a chat with a friend of mine. She's in America and they don't write exams in primary school, nursery and primary. So she was telling me, she was trying to ask how she can keep her child engaged at home. That they don't write exams. And she wants the girl to be serious, you know. And I was like, you don't write exams. Like, they don't write exams. She said they don't write exams. And it's working for them. However, why is she worried? So the question I started asking her is that, is it that you feel that she's not doing enough in the school? Or is it the Nigeria person in you that feels that she's not doing enough in the school? So we're having that conversation. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that because we have in Nigeria mentality or setting in our brains, it feels like it's going to be very tough to do that. But if we actually change our mindset, there's really not a big deal. But then remember that we have formative and summative assessment. So the end, WAEC is a summative assessment.
Yes.
So it means that formative assessment can still happen, but it's now left for the teachers, the school leaders to make the children realize the importance of the formative assessment. Once the children see that formative assessment, because I'm sure that these schools that say we don't write exams, they're having formative assessment. In a lesson, you have formative assessment with your children. So it depends on how you carry that formative assessment. If effective formative assessment is happening, then waiting till SS3 to do a summative assessment might not be a problem. Okay. But it's still based on the mindset. So the teachers need to be reorientated on how to have effective formative assessment. So are we going to go back to fix the how? Still back to the question. Or are we just going to leave the schools to say no exam? Because if we leave them and we wait till SS3, then the pass rates...
That is the point I'm trying to get.
Summative assessments that we do every year or every term helps us to know where the child is, what you need to do as a teacher.
And where he or she is lagging behind.
But without even having a summative assessment, we want to be truthful as teachers. We actually know where every child in our classroom.
Yes,
so it depends on the teachers. Now, that I said reorientation, because even if we are telling myself and so both of us, we are saying this now, how many teachers are going to look at it from that perspective? So a lot of reorientation needs to be done for teachers to know that, okay, so yes, we're not going to be writing a formal exam, but every lesson, there's a formative assessment. At the end of every week, there's a formative assessment. At the end of every term, there's still a formative assessment. The only difference is that maybe they're not writing a, but sincerely, in the Nigerian setting, it might be very, very difficult
to achieve that.
Because even right now that we do exams yearly, I know what we are going through in schools. We are literally begging children to study.
Thank you. Tell us about teacher branding and wellness.
Okay, so when I started teaching formally, in about 2 years, I realized I didn't have a life, right? And it was because of 2 reasons. Number one, I was so passionate that I was just all concerned about my children, my pupils. I really didn't pay attention to so many other things, right? But even when I started realizing that, okay, my family needs my time, my children need my time, the work was there. And that was when I started asking myself, how can I create some sort of balance? And the truth is that you may never be able to create balance, but then you just need to put some things in place. So my love for wellness, or my discovery of wellness, came as a result of trying to find a solution to, finding balance. But as time went on, I realized it wasn't about me alone, because I work with colleagues and we have conversations, and I know that, wow, I see people resign when they get married, and like my husband said, if I come home after this time, you see people that their children are not doing so well in school because they don't have their time, and they're teachers. And many of these things led to me thinking, okay, so it means that if teachers, and this wellness issue is actually deeper than having time, is as deep as dressing well, looking good, not looking tired. Because I started asking the children in my classroom that, why don't you want to become a teacher? Somebody was like, I want to be a teacher like Mrs. Micah. I don't want to be a teacher. And I'm like, okay, so what is it about Mrs. Micah? You dress well, you smell nice. And I remember a girl telling me that my mom is a teacher, and I know that she doesn't sleep. She's always marking. So she's not living with me. So even when others say, I want to be a teacher like Mrs. she said, me, I don't want to be a teacher. I have a teacher in my house. And I see how she comes home. Sometimes she's upset and she pours her anger on us just because the children in her classroom. The girl was really bitter when she was saying it. It felt like she was having a therapy session, because I had to call her later. And she poured everything out, and I felt really bad for her. And I was like, okay, so that means that even our own biological children might be thinking about all of this, and they're like, I can never be a teacher like my mother, and all of that. So wellness came as a result of trying to help teachers take care of themselves, make themselves a priority, right? And also because of my why, which is to make the profession enviable. That's like the end goal for me. I want someone to see me and say, I want to become a teacher. I want children to see me and say, but then it's all about me. I want children to see any teacher, not just Mrs. Micah, and say, I want to be a teacher. And so I went into wellness. And as I was delving into wellness, I realized that we need money. Because it's okay to be well, it's okay to dress well, but money is very important because money gives you the freedom to do some other things that you want to do, make some decisions that you want to make. So instead of spending 2 hours washing, I want to buy a washing machine. Money is needed. Oh, and then branding came because I found out that many teachers have skills that they use every day, but they don't see a big deal in it because they just do it. It's natural to them. So they just need someone to say, do you know you're really good at this? Do you know you can make money from this? Do you know you can monetize this skill? And so wellness and branding has been two things I've been, pushing and trying to make teachers realize that even though you are a teacher, you can be rich, you can look beautiful, you can be handsome, you can be neat, and everyone around you can begin to see teaching as a profession that they want to be. We don't ever say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. I like teaching, but I don't want to be a teacher. No, we don't want that.
How do you manage work-life balance?
Like I said earlier, I wouldn't say there is a balance, but I think one thing, or many of the, okay, let me share a few things that have worked for me. Number one, support system. So I remember when before I became a quality assurance manager, I was actively working in a school. That is, I was a classroom teacher. I was head of science department. I was the deputy head teacher. I had so many things I was doing at the same time. And I was almost like, my life was almost in pieces. But then I sat down one day and I drew a mind map. And I always advise teachers to do this. Draw a mind map and bring out all the branches, everything that you do. Mom, wife, online tutor, maybe you have a business, baker, everything, sister, daughter, friend. Yes.
Grandchild.
Everything, bring out everything, and then now start looking at it from one point to the other, because many times we are focused on the major thing that we do, and that is why every other thing suffers, because they are not priorities. And that is why you will tell your child, don't worry, we're not going there again because you want to mark. That's not a priority. So the moment we begin to realize that, okay, so all these branches, they are all important. What is my goal for each one? As a daughter, I want to be checking on my mom every Saturday. Okay, I'm not going to her house every Saturday. I'm going to her house once in 3 months, and I'll be calling her every Saturday. Write it there. Because if you don't look at it from, it might be weird. How can I be writing it in a book that I want to visit my mother? Write it. As a friend, okay, so I don't have many friends, but at least this friend, okay, on their birthdays, I'll make sure I send them a gift. Okay, this person is trying to do this. Okay, so that means in February, she has her master's graduation, I must be there. As little as that. But of course, your teaching job will take a whole lot more. Maybe, so once you're able to draw that mind map, it means that then you now go back to your plan as a teacher. So as a teacher, I know that exam period is very, very tedious. And as a deputy head teacher, I knew that because I was in charge of assessments, 2 weeks to assessment was always very busy for me. So I had to inform my husband at home that, come, these 2 weeks before midterm break and 2 weeks before end of term is like my busiest time. And because he knows, it gives me grace. So those are the periods that you might not see me in the kitchen. So it's not like I fixed the problem of time to cook, but because he knows there's this room of, okay, are we going, let me buy some, don't worry, I'll do the cooking. So he knows that those 2 weeks. So that's support system. Another period is, okay, so I know that I need to go and design my class, blah, 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 blah. I've spoken to my mom in advance. I want to come and drop the children. So are you taking advantage of your support system? Support system, very, very important. Even in the school, I had a colleague in the next class. We'd always tell ourselves, so we're always checking on ourselves. Are we drinking water? Are we eating? That little, we didn't plan it, but it started happening when he would just knock on my door and they say, your voice is getting loud. Have you eaten? So we started checking on each other. So that means I had another accountability partner right there in the school. You ask for help, delegate to the children in your class. There are many things they can do that you sit down doing for 2 hours that they will do in 5 minutes. I think having a great support system, as little as, so your spouse, your friend, the people that you can find, sometimes you have to pay
Yes.
for some things. Pay someone to clean your house. It doesn't mean you are lazy. Some days you win, some days you struggle, but the goal is to stand up every day and push again. So I wouldn't say that I've found that balance yet, but I would say that I'm working it out because I'm intentional.
All right. Thank you so very much.
Thank
I really
you
enjoyed that
too.
session. So now let's play this game.
Ooh.
Let's do a rapid fire question.
Okay.
Group work or solo assignments?
Solo assignment.
Pop quiz or open book test?
Pop quiz.
Describe your classroom in 3 words.
Engaging. Safe. Joyful.
Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Sneakers or dress shoes?
Sneakers.
Book or movie?
Book.
Nigeria or Japan?
Nigeria.
Ah, really? Winter or summer?
Somehow, because I can feel cold for Nigeria.
Hot or cold?
Cold drink, hot weather.
What's your favorite dream vacation spot?
I'm thinking Dubai or the Maldives, yes.
Basic school or Montessori?
Basic school.
So, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Smoothie or juice?
Smoothie.
Thank you so very much, teacher buddy. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
I'm so excited.
After so
long. I'm so excited.
And it's so good to see you.
And you too. I'm meeting you for the first time.
Yes, same
in
here,
person.
Same here.
But it feels like we've known each other forever.
Because
and
of course we've been.
That's what social media does.
That's what it does. Of course,
thank you too.
End of this session, and it's so amazing having teacher buddy here.
And thank you for what you do. I should say that. Thank you so much for what you do. And I think we need to work on pushing this out more because many teachers need to listen to this, especially even this our students in the university studying education. They need to know that they can actually
perspective.
Yes, we need to change the narrative. And what you're doing is perfect for changing that narrative, because many times when you watch TV programs, you don't see teachers sharing their stories. Instead, you see people in other professions. So doing this is an opportunity for people to know that, oh, they're teachers and they're great teachers. Yeah. So
thank you. I'm so
well done.
Thank you. So, and thank you for actually, your page is actually a breath of fresh air. If you've never been told that, it's actually a safe space. So please, if you're not following Teacher Buddy on Instagram, trust me, you're missing out.
Teacher buddy. Look at
you're missing
your
out.
Teacher buddy.
You're missing out. You need to follow her on social media.
Thank you so much.
Please do that. And if you're not subscribed to this channel and you're seeing this video, after watching this video, what else do you want to see? Subscribe.
Hit the notification button so that you can be reminded every time there's a new post.
Yeah, thank you. And don't forget to recommend the teacher in the comment section. You really need to recommend the teacher, because apparently I know a teacher has actually transformed your life, and you're here because a teacher has touched you. So thank you so very much. I still remain your host, Oyinda Lara. And until I see you in my next video, make sure you're safe. Bye.